Okay, so welcome to lesson 4, part-time H radio 223. So we're going to continue with our qualitative and our quantitative research right now. So you understand the introduction of PPM, or you understand the concept, the complete concept, should I say, of PPM. And now we're going to look at how the BRC conducts its RAMs, okay, and conducts its research, and the way that you will be doing it as part of your assignment, which is, I think you have to do qualitative, like this, upload the video and record the video. But let's look at first at the difference between qualitative and then quantitative research, right? So qualitative, obviously the word quality is in there, is a type of data that describes information, where quantitative, you're able to then measure that information. So in other words, you can get a total of, or a average of, or a summary from. You understand? Whereas qualitative is, again, we're asking about like we want to know a little bit more about, more in depth. We want to be able to ask open-ended questions. Quantitative are closed-ended questions. So for example, we have some examples there, like how many times do you listen to a radio station using an app in a week? um how many different stations do you listen to, is, like, quantitative, and we'll go, let's say, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, and then 8 to 10, for example, right? And then be able to then quantify that. And how often, we can also ask questions like, what music genres do you prefer? And then you do like little checkbox, and they can tick off, and we can again accumulate that into a total number. So we can see, obviously, most popular, least popular. And in qualitative research, again, more open-ended questions: sex, not the gender; favorite songs on the radio stations, but tell us why, like, you are enjoying this, or how, or like do you find, well, I mean, I've got better qualitative research, like, questions to ask, like, for example, what is your opinion on the new breakfast show, right? Did you enjoy the station promotion that involved the Backstreet Boys coming to South Africa, whatever it is, and what did you like about it? Do you like experiences? Do you like prizes? And why? Not prizes, man, money, man. But that would actually fall more under quantitative research and such like that. So again, when you want to find out more about, like, deeper, in-depth, and obviously varied responses, where you can actually kind of like investigate further and talk personally with the person that is in your focus group, you want to be able to use qualitative research, right? So it's an approach that allows the researcher to study the participant experiences, so we can have an explanation as to why we might want to understand quantitative research a little bit further. This means that people selected to participate in a study explain their personal experiences, right? And then again, for it to be more effective, the person that is obviously the interviewer should really kind of like really push them in different directions to get a little bit more, kind of clarity and understanding as to why they answered certain questions that they did in the first place, and then get a little bit more information. Really push for, like, like a super sponged out answer and response. Okay. All right. So it's meaning instead of numbers. So when conducting qualitative research, we're interested in what they think, why they think it, what happened to the way that they used to think, or, anything, again, with behavior, and again, a unique experiences, to understand our listener better, so we can make better and more accurate choices that are effective, with results that directly please and satisfy our listeners, so we can get more of that target market listening to us more loyally. Okay, quantitative studies, 10 to 12 people, like, we, pay them for like a couple of hours. We run, obviously, the focus group, and we then ask the questions and then obviously record those results. Okay. Qualitative is about, again, so two ways in which information is revealed: explicit, where a person must understand a question and reply with a particular answer in a conscious and thoughtful way; implicit, where through certain techniques a researcher can access subconscious levels. Again, as I'm saying, you go ask it a little bit more, understand more, and like um there's so many reasons. Like, for example, you'd be like, okay, great, so have you did you, whatever it is, or will you listen to BMH radio? And they'll say no, for example. Now you will say, okay, why? And they'll say, well, the music for me is not is something, or the presenters are not great, or whatever it may be. Okay, it's not enough, like, for you to be like, okay, to say, what is it about the presenters in particular? Is it the presenters that are chosen, or is it what they say? Is it how they say it, or is it like what is like making up the context and the content, that they're actually speaking about? Um, is that the way that they do not interact with, let's say, listeners in a direct way? So let's say putting on live calls, or only responding to some, or playing no voice notes and stuff like that. We want to know what is going on. Like the first two questions that I had, they're within this one big subsidiary question, right? Like, are not enough. It's not enough to understand and make decisions on at a management level, which again you will understand further in Radio 3. There are a few methods that we can access. So word association, projective techniques, visualization, and laddering. Let's go and look at each one of those. Okay. So word association, the researcher reads a list of words to the respondent, and then they got to write down the word that first comes to mind as they hear each item on the list. So they could use the show names. They could use, again, certain types of products. They could use like certain kinds of social behaviors. They could use media platforms, like digital platforms, or like the lifestyle choices. It doesn't There's so many things that we can understand through word association and direct links to them, that we can then develop a qualitative research a lot more effectively and efficiently. So, okay, projective techniques. This is where the researcher provides an image or a scenario that the respondent needs to complete or make sense of. Okay, so we have a we have a outside broadcast, like we're discussing in the assignment, right? Outside broadcast. It is held at uh, Monte Cassino, and it's held particularly like just outside the gamblers arena. I don't know what to call it. Well, yeah, obviously all the gambling happens, right? Okay. Finish your response to enjoying that experience or not enjoying that experience, right? So projective techniques to be like, okay, cool. Like, I don't like the structure where there's a lot of kind of like traffic in and out, and they kind of noise or whatever it is. I don't really like gambling at all. I don't go to Monte Casino. I don't quite like just the vibe or whatever it is. What I do, I really would have seen or visualized that more within closer or out to or in the outside areas where there's obviously like I think there's an amphitheater there that you can actually use, but there are theater spaces, whatever it may be, right? And that would only be with one question that would have again sub question, sub question, sub question, to understand just the concept of outside broadcasts and how they would work, right? So visualizations. So this is a very popular form of implicit testing that reveals a lot about a person's subconscious decision making and motivation for making certain choices. So visualization is understanding further why people are, you know, saying to you what they're saying. So there's many reasons why. So let's say we decide, like here we're doing virtual teaching or whatever it is. And through COVID, there was an adaptation within lifestyles of working from home or working virtually or whatever it may be, right? Um, and we can start going into the psyche of, because the psyche of someone determines and has a direct effect on their lifestyle choices, and their lifestyle choices are what we want to take advantage of to make sure that our product is included as a mandatory as of those lifestyle choices, and then also the products and the services and whatever it is, like our our role, as we play and as a whole is is effective, so we would go into definitely like, why is it that you are why is it that you've decided on this particular thing? What are the external factors? How does it make you feel? Is that a stage in your, like a phase in your life choice? Is it, again, when I say external factors that are part of, I don't know, relocating or having to commute or whatever it may be, we try and do that. All right, so laddering, this involves successive why questions, again, quite similar to the visualization, in order to get to the root of why a respondent dislikes a certain product. Okay, so qualitative continued. Let's see. So Tracy Johnson, right, also outlines 8 points that qualitative researchers should consider in order to achieve authenticity in their research, right? So when we take these points, you need to be able to understand that it's through the execution and obviously the way that you have constructed the approach and the questioning and the environment and the people that you are speaking to, and again, what comes out of your mouth and how it comes out of your mouth in which order or whatever it is, right? The worthiness of a topic, right? So the relevance um, to the accuracy of that particular person and the importance of its role or its existence in their life, right? Rich rigor in terms of kinds of diversity of the respondents, right? So obviously we need a variety of people, right? So included obviously ethical, no, I was going to say ethnicity, but yes, definitely ethnicity in there is considered obviously diversity. We want to be able to also, like for example, the focus group, we want also people who don't listen to the station at all, for to be able to understand the other side of, right, with people that are completely P1 listeners, loyal listeners, only listeners, you understand, only the station listeners. Sincerity in terms if the transparency and reflexivity of the study, right? So that's, I think that's quite self-explanatory. Explanatory credibility in terms of thick description. We want to be able to. So credibility is obviously like we consider something credible when there is enough to back it up. Is what that statement is saying. Uh, Resonance in terms of the effects of the researcher on the reader. So a good rapport, like obviously someone that knows what they're doing, like that demands an authority of what they are doing, so that the participant also knows, like like what I'm with this process that I'm in is legit. I'm saying to you, legit, not like it's fake. I'm saying to you, like it's a well verified and structured process that is going to be effective, significant contribution to theory and practice, ethical considerations. So making sure that you don't cross any borders, right, of your own or people with social interaction or just human behavior, and meaningful coherence of that study. Right. Large sample procedures which yield quantitative results. Okay, for example, format searches or perceptual telephone studies. So quantity, again, we're saying we're counting stuff. Quantity, we're counting stuff, we're accumulating, and so on and so forth, right? So these can be generalized to the population from which the sample was selected. So we pick a certain amount of people, and then we flood the numbers, and we kind of like you know um, use a formula, try and test a formula to get a very good representation of our majority public, right? So we gather numerical information about the relationship between the research variables and then using statistics. So once again, as I say, close-ended questions that there are yes/no answers like ratings 1 to 10, multiple choice answers, or checkbox answers, so you can choose more than one. Like we want to be able to look at those types of questions. Quantitative research is gathered by turning data obtained from respondents into numbers and then starting to find trends, patterns, like I say, and I've said before. Most commonly used method in audience research is the survey, right? So just like the BRC does, when they do surveys, right? What does it do? Validity about the accuracy of the study. The ideal research situation is to have a valid test, so asking the right questions. You can ask an 20,000 wrong questions and it will mean nothing to you. You can go and you can, again, obviously accumulate the data, it'll come into results, so it'll look like you've done something right, but means nothing to supporting a business decision at the end of the day. So when you formulate your questions, it's really important that you understand that the answers that you're going to get here is because you want to try and make some kind of business decision and have the right choice being made based on the answers that we get, the quantitative accumulatives. Okay, remember, you know your market, so work with your researchers. Okay, and it's possible to have a valid test. Oh, that's what I just explained in terms of invalid test that is reliable. Okay, so anyway, to know your market, know to know your market is to then obviously accumulate or create the correct type of questions that are valid, for the end game of your research. Proving that a study is valid involves ensuring that the methodology accounts for any factors that might influence the results. So we want to be able to use methodologies that are tried and tested, and not something that we just starting or we're just using like once off. We might build hybrid methodologies as well, which is pretty much, it's quite common as well. But once again, it must be tried and tested to see that we can tweak out what wasn't effective in terms of like the actual execution of it, and what was. When trying to prove validity, there are two challenges that have to be addressed. Right, here they are. What type of measurement mechanisms can be put into place? And then, can we generalize the findings of the research outside the respondents to actually represent the study results accurately, right? And I think I know that is self-explanatory. Also, I have kind of obviously covered the explanation of why these two particular, check boxes or checkpoints need to be and are there to prove validity and dependent validity of data. Let's look at a couple more slides on quantitative research. So with the validity, we have what we call prestige bias and researcher bias, right? Prestige bias, respondents tend to give answers that they think will make them seem more educated, successful, hip, financially stable, or otherwise prestigious, right? And then we have researcher bias. Okay. Okay, let me just go through that, explain to you. Respondents give the answers that they think the researchers want to hear. They want to impress. Both obviously are detrimental to, again, accurate, factual, dependable data, right? So we need to remember how we treat and how we approach, and obviously, again, how we contextualize our participants to make sure that we are not leading them in a certain way. That's why, again, to be able to go back to the way that focus groups should be, and most of them are anyway done or included, people that do not use the product and people that do, and there's obviously the variations in between, right? So that you can get a good understanding. If you had everyone that loves the product, you're going to get a false positive, right? false positive means that you get a result and it's properly, like I say, processed or whatever it is, but it means nothing. It's false, okay, because it's not representative of your or a target market. Okay, so in summary, just want to kind of like start ending there. Which research, if you are not prepared to make, uh, why? So why research if you're not prepared to make any changes? Qualitative, focus groups, quantitative, large sample procedures, validity for your research. A test study should measure what is intended, the intention of like why you had originally what you originally set out to go and do. Make sure that research data and findings are reliable and context is super important. And remember, ask the right questions directly to avoid any bias in your results, right? Random samples, so any person has equal chance of being selected. Like I just said there, a nice good variety of people to really understand. And we need large sample sets, especially within, like I say, quantitative research, because again, like doing 10, 15, 20, I mean, that's again also like you are completely boxing in the possibility of understanding variance within responses and so on and so forth. Okay. How to use a focus group. Okay. Remember that focus group data findings are used as indicators. Okay. And like you need to know how to process the data to convert it into knowledge. Okay. So find out about the listeners' knowledge and impressions. Try get an indication of whether the station is on the right track. Always ask the question, is this going to assist me, benefit the station, help me make a better decision moving forward? Or is it just limp data? Okay. Um, obviously your competitors, you have to bring in the characteristics or what the makeups or what your competitor is doing that is directly affecting any risk of losing listeners, right? Okay, into your research as well. Um, your PPMs are again considered. There's a consideration for them, but also the risks and the disadvantages of that. And in closing, don't forget the diaries. So there's the question of the day, which is what like RAM and PPM qualitative or quantitative research methodologies. Why? Okay, and I think that's pretty easy by now to answer. The why you got to substantiate with exactly why how each one of the methodologies are performed and why exactly, well, you understand them as qualitative or quantitative research. And then your homework is example 11b 11b and c, and complete the activity for 11c, question 1, 2, 3. So we can go back to the book. 437. Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole thing, okay, because it's quite long, right? And you should go through it, obviously, like you should go through it on your own, and then you can revise it in class. So 11b, 11b has to do with asking the right questions. So how good is X radio station's morning DJ? How do you feel about X radio station's morning DJ? Like, what is the difference between, and understand, like explaining that, okay? Only asking one question at a time so that you can get one answer, that you can have clarity. Be specific. Another point there, avoid questions that use negative terms. So like any kind of like like you know uh I was going to say throwing shade, but do not use emotive words. You understand, so that you can have an emotive response that has been affected. Right? Use clear. Use questions that are again neutral and then fair, so you can get the correct results. Do not use jargon or colloquialisms. So again, not too fancy, right? Because people speak normal, right? Okay, I'm not saying that like using high English is not normal, but it is not every day by no means. Okay, don't ask hypothetical questions, right? Don't ask questions that do not matter at all. Be careful when you ask questions that they might be sensitive, and always offer an other option. And then you can go through example 11C, which deals with, a little bit of the BCCSA, etc. And that is it for this lesson.